It's a new set. It's a John Romita Jr. t-shirt. It's me trying to stand while I do videos. Basically, a totally different channel at this point. I kind of surprised myself over the last couple of weeks because I've been getting into like John Romita Jr. hate discourse on the internet, fighting people in comment sections about how he's bad. I didn't think that this was a hot take, and I think that what it probably is new comic fans who aren't familiar with why a lot of us dislike JRJR, and so they're defending it because they've seen like that one picture of Spider-Man in the rain and they think that that is John Romita Jr., not like, you know, whatever the horrible monstrosity of Zeb Wells' run was. Anyway, it's like I still own the shirt because I got it for really cheap, so you know, I'm not gonna not own a Spider-Man shirt. Let's go through a few recent pickups, some stuff I've been adding to the collection over the last couple weeks. Actually, this is over the last couple days. I bought all of these this weekend, so I thought I would just kind of give an update, talk about what I've been reading, and then what I also picked up and added to the collection. The first book is James Bond, For Your Eyes Only. This is actually for a friend of mine who's a big James Bond fan. I don't care at all about movie tie-in books. The only ones that I own that I like, I think there's only two of them actually, is Spawn and the Fantastic Four. I like those movies because they're like really bad but really good for that reason, and I like the movie tie-in covers that they did, so I do have a couple of those. But this is James Bond, For Your Eyes Only, #1. I could have gotten a couple more issues from the series, but I don't know, there was like $3 and I didn't want to spend almost $10 to get a bunch more issues. I just figured the first one, cool display piece, giving it to a friend of mine, so yeah. Next up is a trade. This is Grounded Volume 1. This is by Mark Sable, Paul Azaceta, I'm so sorry, Nick Filardi, Kristen Ferretti. Yeah, just looked interesting. I got this for $1, which, you know, on something where the cover price is $15, it's like you can't turn it down. It's probably at the very minimum good and readable, and I dig the art a lot. I think it's really, really cool, so I'm excited to check this out, give it a read, see what it's like. It's from 2006, so it's from like an era of indie comics that I'm not super familiar with. I feel like 2010s is where I kind of get a better grasp on what was coming out, and then like 90s stuff. So in between, there's this valley of the 2000s that I'm just not that versed in, so it's exciting to pick up something like this. Yeah, Powers Volume 1. It's not, oh my god, it's not Powers Volume 1, it's Grounded Volume 1, Powerless is the subtitle. So easy mistake to make since there is an indie comic called Powers. Next up, this is something that I knew existed, but I had not found a copy for in a long time. I mean, I think it'd probably been a year or two since I saw one of these in a shop, and so I thought it'd be fun to grab. Another thing that I could have gotten a couple issues of, but I decided just to get the first issue because it's more of a gimmick than anything else, and this is What the Issue 1. This is sort of the Marvel gimmick gag magazine from the 80s. This is fun. This is a Bogdanov and Milgram cover, and yeah, just neat, like sort of Stan's Soapbox, bullpen bulletins, cartoon-esque stuff. Reminds me of something like The Roast of the Fantastic Four or other stuff I've got in my collection that's like kind of weird, kind of out there, but fun, very cool. So I'm excited to crack this up and give it a read, see what it's like. In general, gimmick books and then also like PSA books to me are really fascinating because a lot of times they were given to artists and writers that weren't doing a lot of the mainstream stuff with Marvel Comics or with DC or whatever, but I really only buy Marvel ones. And so it's just cool to see a book where it was probably done by sort of the B team, people that were not at the center, at the forefront of the Marvel creative sphere, but they were still able to do something funny. And in a way, this was probably mostly for people that were really, really into comics, so you get a lot of jokes and stuff in here that is like funnier if you are really into that scene at the time. So it's not something that plays like a joke book to a mainstream audience. It's for comic fans, and I like that. Next up, a very small trade paperback. It's actually, I think, probably just one issue because it's not a large book at all, but this is Alan Moore's Writing for Comics. I was aware of this book. I had seen the cover on a list of Alan Moore stuff, I think. I don't remember where I had heard of it, but I was aware that it existed and had never picked it up, and I thought it was neat. And just like the rest of the trades here, I got it for $1. It was at a Twice Sold Tales in Capitol Hill in Seattle, Washington, and was able to get this and a whole bunch of other trades that we'll see here in this haul, but I just thought for $1, I mean, very cool. It's not a comic, it's all just text, it's just a book, but still cool to have. You know, I think it's neat when you get sort of behind the scenes stuff from somebody who was super influential, and just neat to kind of hear about his insight and process at the time. And this came out in 2003, so it's very cool to kind of see where he was at in his career at the time. He had written Watchmen, he had written Miracle Man, some other influential stuff, but kind of hadn't gone the way that we know now, where like he's more of a legacy creator. This was kind of still during his heyday, during the time where he was doing big ticket stuff. Maybe a little bit after that, but still, like, he was at the time at that high status of Alan Moore. Speaking of Alan Moore, probably my favorite recent pickup I've made. This was at Goodwill, which of all places to find comics, it's like I don't even really look for comics when I'm at somewhere like Goodwill, but I found a hardcover Watchmen. This is beautiful. This is like an early print because it's got the original cover before they went with this sort of smiley face with blood on it that's on most current copies. Really, really beautiful, and this was like $2, so very cool to get this. Beautiful. I also really like that it's printed in color and then it's all newsprint, so it's really beautiful old printing, and looks well loved. You know, the dust jacket is in bad shape, and I just love stuff that looks like this. It has this aesthetic. So I'm at the point where it's been a couple years since I read Watchmen. I probably will reread it soon, and what I had before was sort of the 2018, you know, high gloss new copy. I still got this used, but it's like it's so new and bright, which is cool, but it's like for me, the comics reading experience is always going to be better reading it in a format that's as close to the original as possible. I don't feel much need at all to go find an original run of Watchmen because it's best as a collected edition, so to have this hardcover is really cool. Maybe I should do a giveaway or something of this book. I don't know, I have a bunch of books that are like stuff I have duplicates of to give away to people, and now Watchmen has entered that because I just got this new hardcover copy. How about this? If this video gets 10,000 views, so if you guys like, comment, share, subscribe, all that stuff, I'll give away this copy of Watchmen as well as this copy of Sin City: The Hard Goodbye. This is the first volume of Sin City. Beautiful, all black and white. This is part of a set, but I only have this first volume, so it's a little bit smaller form factor, but beautiful. These two, get the video to 10,000 views. If you do that, I'll give it away. The next book I picked up is something I'd never heard of, but kind of fits in this pocket of comics, which is like if I see it and it fits a couple criteria, I'm just gonna buy it. And the easiest criteria to get me to buy a book is cheap, and then the second easiest criteria is the Fantastic Four. So this is the Fantastic Four 1. This is the Marvel 100 Years Celebration. I don't know anything about this. I don't know what year this was. Just cracking it open to see here. So this was 2014, I guess. But this is a really beautiful cover. Very, very cool cosmic Fantastic Four setup there. And yeah, I'm excited to read it. The 100th anniversary of Marvel. I was not aware that was in 2014, which is kind of surprising because you'd think that that would totally be a piece of knowledge I would have. The cover is by Joanna Estep. This is a beautiful sort of space cover. Yeah, I really dig it. I'm looking forward to reading this. And for $3, it was like, it's a Fantastic Four cover. It's got a special Marvel 100th anniversary banner. Easy, yes. A really brief side note to say that right now, 3 o'clock in the afternoon in my apartment is the best time of day for natural light, which is why I shot this right now. So you're getting the most well-lit set you can possibly get, which is awesome, right through the window. Next up, when it comes to indie comics that people are recommending to read all the time, a name that comes up is Brian Azzarello. Obviously, he's done work with Batman and some other stuff, but I thought if I see his name on an indie comic in general, it's going to be worth picking up. And what I was talking about, Twice Told Tales, getting a bunch of $1 trades, this was in that stack. So I got Loveless Volume 1 by Brian Azzarello and Marcelo Frusin, which I think makes the art really pop. I really dig the stuff I'm seeing in here just from flipping through it. So I'm excited to check this out. I love Western stuff. I love kind of the cowboy aesthetic. If you know me in real life, you know that like the comic thing is one half of it, and then being a cowboy is kind of the other half of my vibe and my aesthetic. So very cool to find stuff like this. And then it seems like it'll be a quick read. And again, it's printed on newsprint. It's printed like not on high gloss paper, which to me makes the reading experience so much better, and I'm excited to check this out. I like a lot of the Vertigo stuff because they have sort of the budget and the promotional push of DC Comics behind them, but they are a little bit more experimental. They're a little bit more out there. The creators, I think, feel a little bit more free to do stuff that's unique. The next pickup here, I want to talk a little bit about my collecting methodology at this point in my, I don't know, collecting career. As you can see, I have kind of gotten to the point where displays are most of my goals, right? So I have my Moon Knight, I got my Spider-Man 2099, Turtles, Warlock, Darkhawk, Quasar, a lot of stuff up there, Invincible, Scarlet Spider, all these action figures. And around this entire place, you know, that's the legs of Colossus up there. You can see just his feet. And we've got obviously the big ticket books right here, your ASM 300 and Secret Wars 8 and all that stuff. So at this point in my collecting, I'm essentially plugging holes in runs to complete them. I'm not really looking for new runs. I know what I like, and in general, other than like curiosities and weird stuff, you know, getting issue 1 of What The that I showed you earlier, I'm not looking for like another big run to work through because I know what I like. And now if I'm going to read a run, I'm just going to go get a trade or an omnibus or something like that. So there are a lot of times when I'm in comic shops and I'm using CLZ, which if you don't use CLZ and you're collecting comics, it's like just make your life better and use it. I don't know why you wouldn't. And when I'm going through the comic store, I'm using that app to track just my wish list, and I'm just going alphabetically and going, okay, well, what's on my wish list under the letter D? Okay, let's go here under D, and then what's under E, and we'll go here, and then F and G, and etc., etc. And that list is getting shorter and shorter and shorter. And so when it comes to Batman, the only one that I had left on my Batman Batman list of titles to pick up was this book, which I think is pretty neat, which is Batman Legends of the Dark Knight number 14. This is, as far as I know, a completely, kind of pointless issue. It's not that there's some great significance to it. I didn't pick it up because I really, really want to read it. It's because I have 19 sequential issues in a row, except for number 14, which makes 20 sequential issues. And once I hit 20, it's like, all right, I can read those 20 sequential issues. Then I can decide if I really like it and I want to go for more. But at this point, it's Legends of the Dark Knight Batman. I kind of know what I'm getting into. I'm sure it's going to be fine. I started collecting Legends of the Dark Knight one time in Arizona. I was at a comic shop and I found like 10 sequential issues from 2 through 11 in a 25-cent bin or a 50-cent bin. It was like an incredible deal. I mean, not an incredible deal because it's not like these are high-ticket books, but I was able to get a lot of them for very cheap. And so then once I got those, I thought, okay, now it's kind of worth finding the other covers and getting the 4 Legends of the Dark Knight alternate color covers, which are the most gimmicky thing ever, right? But I like them. I like having those, and they're on display in my apartment, not here, but around the corner. And so when I put up sort of Batman displays and stuff, I like having those Legends of the Dark Knight and then having as many sequential issues as I can. Eventually, I'll be putting them into my sort of comic box folio storage thing to make it a better way to read and to access Legends of the Dark Knight. But this was the one to complete the run. So very neat to get this out of the wish list and back on to the full list on my CLZ app of a completed run. More trades for $1. This by Warren Ellis is Planetary, All Over the World and Other Stories. Yeah, I am not that familiar with Warren Ellis' work, so I'm interested to read this and check it out. It's from Wildstorm, which, obviously The Authority is getting a lot of attention on the last couple of years, the last year or so, with James Gunn announcing it as a movie or whatever it'll end up being. Who knows? But I'm just interested in reading more Wildstorm books. It's part of comics history that I think is interesting, and then the way that the characters were eventually sort of folded into DC, I find fascinating. So I'm interested to check this one out. It was $1, so I thought, hey, why not take the risk? Why not check it out? And I know that Warren Ellis is regarded as a good writer, so it's kind of a win-win. I either read something and I'm like, yeah, that was okay, and then I kind of branch out of my comfort zone, or it ends up being a surprise hit. This year I really am focusing on pushing myself to read more independent stuff and stuff that I'm not super familiar with. Part of that is because I've kind of read all of the Batman, Spider-Man, all that other stuff that I might be interested in. So at this point, I'm not super interested in like putting a ton of effort into digging in and finding really obscure stuff with characters I like when there is so much readily available and cheap indie comics out there that I can spend more time with. But obviously, when Marvel puts something out that I just cannot resist, I have to chase it. And the thing that I had to chase that was a new release, this is the first new release comic book I've bought in, I just spoiled it, in a year, 2 years maybe? I mean, it's been an incredibly long time since I went into a comic shop and bought a new issue off the rack. And I knew this issue was coming out, but I didn't remember when, because I don't keep track of new releases anymore. The only thing I'm looking forward to at the time of shooting this is there's a mini-series of The Thing coming out, and I will be buying that. But I've dropped off of buying the new Fantastic Four. I just bought the trade for Ultimate Spider-Man, for Hickman's Ultimate Spider-Man. Like, I'm not going in to comic shops and buying new releases at all, which means that if a comic shop primarily sells new releases, if it's just like racks of new comic books, I'm probably not shopping there very often, if at all. And in the case of shops in Seattle, I love those shops and they have great selection of new stuff, but I don't buy any of that. So it kind of affects my shopping habits that I'm not going and getting something new regularly. But I did know this was coming out, and then I was in Subspace Comics, which is in like Linwood, Washington, and I picked up What If Galactus Transformed Moon Knight. So I'm a big What If fan. I have the first issue of both of the original runs. I'm very proud to have What If Volume 1, Issue 1, What If Spider-Man Joined the Fantastic Four. That's a classic. That's one that like gets brought up a lot when you talk about the MCU show and sort of the inspiration for what a classic What If episode is. I don't think that the MCU show does a really great job of boiling down what makes What If very interesting, and I understand that the show can't really do that, but I know that like in the case of something like this, What If Galactus transformed Moon Knight, where it gets hopefully to the spirit of sort of the absurdity of What If. I always thought that What If as a series is at its best and works well when the story works for about one issue, and like once it would get past that point, you go, I don't know if that really like would sustain itself. I prefer what we have, but I'm glad I got to see the exploration. Especially in the second run, something that annoyed me a lot is they would do like, what if the Avengers lost the Evolutionary War, or like, what if Tony Stark lost Armor Wars? And it was just like, what if we took something that did happen and then like the good guys lost? And that's not really compelling as much. So I know that What If has always been, there's been a shaky creative history to it. But what I love are sort of bottle episodes, pocket stories that tell you one interesting, funny thing that could have happened. It's not like it has to be funny. It can be anything, right? There's the one that's like, what if America created an army of super soldiers in World War II? And that's interesting. That's compelling. But then also, like, I prefer a world where there's only Captain America as a super soldier. I like that story more. So it's cool that we got to see it, and then it's over and done with. In the case of this, when it comes to like what I collect, and the characters that I like, it's like Moon Knight is all up here on the shelf. On the other side of my apartment, there's the giant sort of Galactus shrine with all the great Galactus books on it. So this is like custom made for me, right? This is catered to my exact interest, my exact niche when it comes to comic characters and what I'm likely to go pick up and buy. So I couldn't resist it. I haven't bought any of the other Herald of Galactus What If books that they've been doing. I think they did one for Hulk and things like that. It's a cool concept. I dig the idea. It's not for me. This one is for me. Next up, something that I'm excited to read. I think it should be hopefully a great read. I had not heard of it prior to picking it up. And honestly, truthfully, even though this is a reflection of who I am as a person, and probably not a positive reflection, it's because I don't read really anything biographical. I don't, in comics. I read a lot of autobiographies and biographies when I'm just reading literature, like books. But when it comes to comics, I'm not really usually reading historical fiction or any sort of biographical literature. But this is March by John Lewis. So Congressman John Lewis, influential sort of equality advocate in the United States. And I am excited to read this. It has hilariously on the back a endorsement by President Bill Clinton, but also won the Robert Kennedy Book Award Special Recognition. It's a Coretta Scott King Honor Book, so it's got accolades that to me hopefully show that it's going to be a great read. It looks beautiful. I mean, the art is stunning. I love the black and white artwork in general. That's something that really grabs me a lot, so I'm excited to read it. And it's from Top Shelf Productions, which is an indie publisher that I was not familiar with. So generally, this is just something that I picked up because I thought I am unlikely to have read this if not for it being in my hands right now and deciding to read it. And it was $1, so it's like I kind of can't lose. Okay, the final book that I am going to show you is one of the most self-indulgent fan collecting moments in my entire collection. It's something I've looked for a long time. It's something that people really don't care about, but I do. And to prove it, I'll show you that I have an action figure of Todd McFarlane. So this is the level of fandom that I'm operating at. This is from the Spawn thing. It was at GameStop. This is Infinity Inc. number 13. So Infinity Inc. number 13 is the first ever published professional work by Todd McFarlane in the comic industry. A couple years prior to this, there was some fan artwork that he sent in of Batman to a publisher, and that was published. So technically, that is the first ever published artwork of his, but this is his first professional work in comics. And it's cool. I mean, I dig it. I think it's neat to have in the collection. It's hilarious because he's not mentioned on the cover along with the creators. I think he is on issue 14 because he picked up more responsibility by then. I've had 14 for a while. 14 is the first cover, and that is objectively a much prettier like cover and design and more iconic than this. But this was like the final piece in the Todd McFarlane collecting puzzle for me. Obviously having like the big ticket ones. I love my Spider-Man. I love the ASM 323. That's a big book for me. And mostly because I have the statue down there of ASM 323. But also ASM 300 and all of his other work with the characters. So I already had kind of a lot of those bigger ticket books. I've got every iconic Spawn cover. You know, a lot of it had gone away from me, like the magic of finding Todd work that was really iconic. And so once you start chasing down these like rabbit holes and down different paths of stuff that he's done, one of those goals can just be finding his first ever published work. And I haven't done this with any other artists. Like I don't have whatever Alex Ross' first work was. Obviously once you get into artists that have, you know, much more influential and older careers, it's just going to become impossible. It's not like I'm going to find the first work ever published by Steve Ditko, right? Something like that is going to be so elusive and so distant that it wouldn't really be possible. And it might not even be confirmed or denied like what it is. You know, a lot of times the older you go and the longer these guys' careers were, it's going to be like, well, it either was in this issue or this issue of like Nurse Nancy or something. So this is this is Todd's first ever published work with DC Comics, and it's very cool to have in the collection. It's hilarious to have 2 issues of Infinity Inc. in my collection just for that reason. But I think eventually in the long term, for me, I would love to do a display that's all sort of Todd McFarlane. Once I have more space and I'm able to do something that's its own setup for his work. then I would include this, because this is a pretty iconic piece for me of that collecting. And as of right now, that is everything new that I've bought. It's not a huge stack, but hey, I mean, for a weekend, you know, this is did some damage across a couple stores and Goodwills. So far so good on standing to shoot videos. So if you guys dig this, I'll probably just stick with it. It feels a little bit more energetic, a little bit more up tempo. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.